What is up guys, Wraec here with a new video, and today we want to look over my SL30 light clear. In fact, we did this on stream, live on stream. Was quite a fun stream, I have to say. And I think I was the first one now to do it with an ASDE. Usually those clears used an A-AtD, which is much more potent solution for this. He's way more powerful for clears like this, but also way more expensive. Like an ASDE, you can get like an A- SDE for around 20k in the auction house, and A-AtD is 40 to 50k, so it's quite the difference. One part of it was definitely that people assumed that you couldn't clear light SL, and we proved the people wrong. We did it, and without further ado, I would say we just look over the fights and look at all those wonderful SL30 light fights. Okay, first fight against the Mage enemy. The Mage enemy is not that difficult, I have to say. You mainly face a lot of CC, and the enemies, once again, as it is 26 to 30 SL, have 40% CI offset, so that is a big problem, and you will certainly see a lot of CC. EOS gains partly some CI due to allies dying, so that helps a little bit. But still, you can see every time they attack, it's just horrible amount of CC. Asmodel still doing decent damage, even though he's a B tier. We're not using his sublimations at this point. This was something that we only later added. I wanted to try to do it without. Against the mage enemies, we didn't need it yet. They mainly deal damage, horrify, petrify, and reduce your armor. The armor reduce doesn't matter too much. The horrify, petrify obviously does, and every time one of basically your heroes dies, they inflict horrify on your team as well. Now against the warrior enemies, they are a lot more annoying. For once, every time you hit them, they reduce one random ally by 20 energy, so that is annoying, because as you can see, we only have 3 on the field right now, so that is pretty bad. And then they also steal attack, and that turned out to be a problem for some point. In the back row, you're a little bit more safe against that, so that can certainly help. And beyond that, they inflict healing curses, they do all that bad stuff. And still we could clear them in this stage, mainly because those single enemy stages here were a little bit easier. The combined stage that we faced on 30.3, that is another story. Because now you have the combination of all those effects from the mages, like the horrify, the petrify, and all this CC that you face. And beyond that, you have the warriors with the energy reduce, the attack steal, and all of that, and the healing curses that certainly destroyed 1 or 2 attempts for us. And yeah, so that took quite some time. You could see the first rounds, by the way, the Michelles, we put some demon belts on those. They don't really survive very often, but when they did, you could see it could be quite nice. When they got a stun off and just stunned the enemies and gave us an extra turn. So now here the Asmodel finishing it up. You could see the damage they do. By the way, when those enemies die, they deal damage to you, which is rather annoying and can kill your attempts. Because if your heroes dies in the attack, and even though the enemies are dead, then you lose. So that's annoying. Now we're facing the boss here. The boss itself is a ranger, so the minions in the front, warriors, in the back row, mages, and the boss itself, a ranger. The boss itself has a lot of abilities, from mark damage over energy reduce, all that good stuff. We had to try a lot of setups here, ended up now using full sublimations on Asmodel basically, and putting the Sundevour EOS as a tank in the front row with an AM beam, and in the back row we put the Asmodel with the Candy Cane, to just make him survive a little bit longer, to get the actives off to heal with Balance Strike, and that turned out to be the winning strategy here, and you will see that in the setup as well. So let's go over the setup now. I want to show you everything. One thing though that I have to say, I currently don't have my A Aspen, so this SDE for our clear actually had 900k more attack, so we were at about 10 million attack. Level 60 EOS is nice because of the extra armor. I assume you can use lower levels as well. Should be possible. We had full sublimations. If you want to skip on some sublimations, skip on the last one. That is basically the passive that only activates when she dies, and we don't really want her to die, so having this really kind of useless. You don't need this last sublimation. There are some others that you can skip on, but like this one is very important to really get going when the enemies die, that you get the all damage dealt and everything. And basic and active are basically your main sources of damage. And a lot of it is from the basics, so you really want those first 3 sublimations at least, and the 4th one is not that important. Regarding the stats, we don't have the best copy. It's like pretty low roll A- copy. 6000 attacks, decent. What really made this possible though are really the bonus stats. Precision, Giant Kill, Fire is a god roll. Those are god roll stats, and I think you will need a fair bit of stats to compensate for that. I would say really a lot of stats. I don't think this clear can be copied with a B+ hero. You might get close, you might clear something like, I don't know, 28, 29, this is possible. I could see 28. 28 is really possible. You might have more success though with an Asmodel, to be honest. This strat though helped us clear SL30 Lite with EOS. Was not done before as far as I know. The clears that I saw were all with an Asmodel, and this first one with a EOS, so that is pretty nice. The stones and gear and skin weren't that fancy even. We had like the regular 1-star resonance gear, not even an upgraded resonance gear. We had an S3 crit attack stones, so nothing too fancy here, no S6 stones, no anything. Still a lot possible, a lot of sources still to get stats actually, so that might be something to look out for. Enabled, not really a whole lot to say here. Balance strike is kind of difficult because the enemies do have healing curses, but we really want the extra damage. We really want that tiny bit of extra damage. So having balance strike helps a lot. And then you kind of get into the weird position where the enemies do have attack reduce. They do have like 3 variants of CC. I think they stun, they petrify, and they horrify. And that is kind of weird. And you don't really know what to take in your 3rd enable slot. And as it turned out, Control Purify was the way to go forward. We have some ways to remove the healing curses they inflict by getting lower and less strong heals. Also, if we do a basic, that didn't really kill us because we have the A and B, that as well helps. So we are kind of tanky in that sense. So what really destroyed a lot of our runs was CC, not attacking around. And with EOS you really want her to attack every round. Mainly because your damage is rather low. It's not really that you can burst those enemies down with like a few hits. For example, the Abyss clear that we did, for example, the SL Abyss clear, those were a lot less rounds. And when you get that hit in, that insane damage hit, that is a huge difference. Or a Mockman clear for SL30 Dark, that looks entirely different, where you kill the boss basically on turn 1. That is not possible with EOS. You kill the boss on like turn 12, and that is a huge difference. So you kind of have to make sure you survive a little bit and have a tanky EOS. And that is also the reason we took damage reduction and put the EOS in the front row. The EOS in the front row with the damage reduction, and then crit damage. Which, by the way, there is a misconception going on that EOS can't crit. There is a certain part of it that can't crit. The damage over time effect can't crit, and that is why you see white numbers when EOS is attacking. And there is some part of it, I think, where is it? Somewhere here. Here, Divine Retribution 3. Deals 9% of attack damage. This effect does not land a critical hit, and its damage is fixed, which cannot be reduced, and so on. And this kind of started the myth that EOS can't crit with her active and basic skill, which is not true. You can crit with the active skill. The only things that can't crit are the damage over time effect and the Divine Retribution. So getting crit is well worth it and gives you a lot of damage. The tree, as we'd already talked about, this sublimation, tree level 120 though. So that is something we did. We kind of just had the spiritual essence after we reset Mockman to get these sublimations for Asmodel, which we will look at it in a second. And then we had some extra spiritual essence, and I said like, okay, let's just throw them on EOS and get some additional stats. So by that we get 500,000 fixed attack, and how much is that even? I'm not even sure. 45 million fixed HP, so another big chunk of fixed attack and fixed HP. And I'm sure you can compensate that in any way. You know the stats now is 10 million attack. Also a little bit more HP, I think we're over 500 million. So that is something to keep in mind. And then we have the skin, just the legendary Solar Deity skin. Not at Mythic, just legendary, nothing too fancy. Let's hop on and see the Asmodel. Asmodel, that is actually the real stats we used. 480 million HP with 8 million attack, full sublimations, and we used the candy bar actually. And that is again to combat the CC, to make him survive longer. And we still use the control purify. It is kind of interesting. We have 3 kinds of CC in there. And most of the time the candy bar will protect you from the stun, which can happen, and from the horrify that is inflicted on you when somebody on your team dies. And then you're still stuck with the petrify, and petrify is still common, so you kind of have to go with control purify. Speed, kind of need a fair bit of speed, should be faster than all of the enemies in that case, because as soon as the boss attacks, some Michelle or something is going to die, and you are going to be inflicted with horrify, so attacking before the boss does is kind of important. And we used Balance Strike, and the idea was, if Asmodel is not CC'd, he has a life pool that is big enough to survive in the back row and recover his life with Balance Strike. So that was the idea, and that worked out pretty well. We used damage reduction, we used crit, and we used armor, so still pretty defensive stats with enough damage to actually make the heal worth it. Stat-wise, level 110, we had some stuff left after maxing EOS, so here we actually get, what do we get? 429k attack and 38 million HP. And the sublimations that are the most important here, we obviously took the basic attack for damage. It's really, there's not much in there, not too much fancy things, I think. Well, the basic attack increases its control immunity, so that is rather nice. We take that, obviously. And the active skill, I think, no, the active skill is insane for dealing damage. We tried that on a few ways if you really want to go for it. As Sublimed Asmodel is insane for dealing damage. And he has some HP restore here as well, so that is rather nice. But we mainly use this skill, the recovery on life, and actually his all damage increase basically every time an ally is killed. He increases his all damage dealt. Michelles can die twice, so that is 2 stacks of that all damage dealt, and it's 18% per ally dying. So you easily get a huge stack of all damage dealt, and with this last sublimation, he can share 30% of this all damage dealt with his allies, so that is pretty nice. The revenge stuff is really only good for dealing damage, and then we had this. And here I have to say, Valorous Guardian is the glorious support. The glorious support is pretty nice. It's like an effect that gives you 40% all damage reduction. So if only the EOS and the Asmodel are alive, then Asmodel will give EOS 40% of all damage reduction, and that is actually insane. Buff his own stats with it, which isn't too important. We had this, we had a little additional control immunity that is granted for the ally that gets the glorious support as well. This last one would have been nice. I didn't quite have the sub-essence at that point, didn't want to go for it, but that would have given us a 30% chance to grant glorious support to another ally, and in some rounds we actually had Andrea alive as well, and she obviously took the glorious support for some time before EOS could get it, and having some fights with both of them with glorious support, that would have helped a lot. Also, by the way, helps a lot with his damage if you want to go for a damage Asmodel, because every time the ally with glorious supports takes damage, revenge is inflicted on the enemy, and that obviously heightens your damage as well. Last thing, we have just the legendary skin, nothing too special. We'll look at the homes in a second. Other heroes, Balrain with the Demon Bell, she sometimes did an active, and her active can be pretty nice, because it actually has a 50% chance to dispel all control effects on allies, which is very nice, and sometimes got Asmodel and EOS out of CC, because in the first round they are still rather vulnerable to CC, and this can indeed help a fair bit. So having Balrain kind of nice, and also after she's dead, where is it? When a hero dies, it restores 80% of attack HP for all allies for 4 rounds. And that, of course, can remove Armor healing curses, so that is also pretty nice on top of that. Then we used Andrea. Andrea is really a very nice hero. We put her in a home and gave her some minor tenants. There's nothing too fancy here. We have a block HP stone, we have a crown, some very defensive HP oriented setup. She never really or rarely ever got to do an active skill, which was kind of sad because the active skill is very strong. Deals 600% damage to front row enemies, reduces their damage reduction by 25% for 3 rounds, and all allies holy damage is increased by 25% for 3 rounds, and then we start restoring life. So that is actually a huge buff and a huge debuff for the enemy, and making use of that is rather nice. Beyond that, we have this basic attack grants 1 layer of Glorious Blessing with a 100% chance to gain 1 extra layer, and of course we increase all allies precision by 25%. So 25% precision buff obviously adds to our damage, and even in the end, every time battle starts we get Glorious Blessing, and whenever an ally dies, which of course is the case with the Michelle, the Belrain on the team and the Michelles on the team, we restore all allies HP, which helps to deal with healing curses. And we increase their damage reduction by 15% for 4 rounds. And we restore the ally with the lowest HP. So another stack of damage reduction. And having an Andrea on the team was noticeably better than having another Michelle. So that is rather good. Let's just jump to the homes and take a look at that. Full level 105 home here. We have a pretty bad Saja. The decent stats from the Transcendence heroes. This is like 2.3 million attack, and then we have 1.9 million attack. The Asmodel 710k, we brought a pretty decent copy, didn't get quite one for slot 3, then again slot 3 to Silago and Saja, both horrible heroes, but a pretty decent home with max stats for them. The main damage dealer, the EOS, obviously had a bit better stats. We won't look at this one because that was an ALFA, so way bigger stats than we have now. It's lacking like 900k attack. Then we have this Panda with the skin, actually. I bought the skin. 4.4k attack, copy 4.6k, I think even. Grants about 1 million attack. We have the Vesa, B-tier Vesa. Not too fancy. It's on her way to T5 actually, so not entirely T4. 2.1 million attack, and then this Russell here with the 960k as well. And then just the home of the Andrea, and that is really nothing too fancy. We didn't even put imprints on those two, and the Flora was still set up. So those are some decent stats, like 991k attack, and obviously the 25 million HP are the most important parts. So that is basically the setup that we use. So now you know the setup. And that's basically everything you need to know about my light SL30 clear. It's kind of interesting. We've now cleared 5 of the 6 sealants, just leaving out the Shadow SL, where we are at 26. And to be honest, I think that's about it. What I can do for some time in SL, because like we just got Astral, the Shadow Transcendence hero. And yeah, he helped, he helped Jesus to clear it. But I don't have like an S-tier Starving Jara, I don't have an A-tier SRL, and I don't see any use in buying either of those. So probably I'm not going to make any progress in Shadow SL for quite some time. And that's sad, because I won't see the full 30 screen this time around, not like with the 25, where I really got to that point that I finished every SL. But it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. For now, I'm happy that we were able to clear light SL30. And with that, I wish you a great day, and we'll see us in the next one.